Most women are taught that being liked is a form of safety. Smile enough. Be agreeable enough. Be attractive, but not intimidating. Be intelligent, but never so certain that a man feels unnecessary. Let him feel impressive. Let him feel chosen. Let him believe quietly that your approval is available if he plays his cards correctly. And then they are confused when men lose interest in the very women who make themselves easiest to approve of. Because approval is valuable only when it cannot be extracted on demand. A woman who does not seek a man's approval creates a particular disturbance in him. She does not necessarily reject him. She may be warm, charming, attentive, even deeply interested. But her interest does not have the frantic quality of a petition. She is not asking him to certify her worth. She is not reshaping her opinions to avoid a disagreement. She is not scanning his face after every sentence, waiting to learn whether she has passed some invisible test. And men notice. They notice faster than they admit. And they interpret it in ways that reveal far more about their psychology than about hers. By the end of this, you will understand why some men become intensely drawn to a woman who does not seek their validation, why others become cold or dismissive, why certain men attempt to humble her, and why the man who calls her too much is often simply revealing that he cannot control the emotional atmosphere around her. Because the woman who does not seek approval is not merely behaving differently. She is disrupting an arrangement many people have silently come to expect. Most social interaction contains a negotiation of status. It is subtle. Nobody announces it. But it is there in the timing of a reply, the apology that arrives too quickly, the joke someone laughs at even when it is not funny, the opinion that gets softened the moment a powerful person looks unconvinced. Human beings are constantly asking one another, without using the words, who has the right to define reality here? A woman who seeks male approval gives away that right before the relationship has even begun. She lets his attention determine her mood. His praise determines her confidence. His withdrawal determines her anxiety. His preferences become instructions. The man may never consciously request this power. Often, he simply accepts it. People rarely reject an advantage that arrives gift-wrapped and emotionally available. But a woman who does not seek approval changes the terms. She may appreciate his interest, but she does not depend on it. She may enjoy being desired, but she does not confuse being desired with being valued. She can hear a man disagree with her without immediately dissolving into self-doubt. She does not punish him for having standards, but she does not abandon her own simply because his are louder. To the secure man, this is refreshing. To the insecure man, it is an insult. And that distinction is where most women make a costly mistake. They assume that a man's discomfort around an independent woman means she has done something wrong. They begin to soften themselves. They become less direct, less ambitious, less expressive. They start managing his ego as though it were a small, unpredictable animal that must not be startled. But the truth is simpler. A man who needs you to be smaller in order to feel larger is not responding to your arrogance. He is responding to evidence that he cannot easily occupy the superior position. Now this is where most people misunderstand the psychology. A man does not always interpret a woman who seeks no approval as confident. Confidence is too clean a word. It sounds flattering, uncomplicated, socially acceptable. What he actually feels may be a mixture of attraction, curiosity, suspicion, and threat. He wonders, why is she not trying to impress me? Then, more dangerously, what does she know that I do not? Because approval-seeking behavior makes people predictable. If someone needs your validation, you can influence them with very little effort. You can give warmth and receive compliance. You can withdraw warmth and watch them scramble to restore it. You do not have to become consciously manipulative for this dynamic to exist. It operates beneath intention. The woman who does not need the reward cannot be trained by it. That is what makes her difficult to classify. A man accustomed to women adapting around him may find her fascinating at first. She does not react the way he expects. He gives a compliment, and she receives it without acting as though a royal decree has been issued. He pulls away slightly, and she does not chase. He tests her with a provocative comment, and she does not rush to defend herself. This creates uncertainty, and uncertainty, in the right dose, produces obsession. Not because she is playing hard to get. That phrase is too primitive for what is actually happening. She is not withholding herself as a tactic. She simply has an internal center of gravity. His opinion enters her world, but it does not become the sun around which everything else must orbit. To a man used to immediate emotional influence, this feels like standing before a locked door, without knowing whether there is treasure behind it, or simply a woman with better things to do. Both possibilities disturb him. He may begin pursuing her more intensely. He wants to understand the source of her self-possession. He wants to be the person whose approval finally matters to her. There is ego in this, of course. Men are not immune to turning another person's indifference into a competitive sport. But there can also be genuine respect. A secure man sees that she has a life, standards, and self-respect. He does not interpret this as an attack. He understands that her attention has value precisely because she does not distribute it indiscriminately. An insecure man sees the same traits and feels a different emotion entirely. He feels excluded, not because she excluded him, but because he cannot immediately establish emotional authority over her. He cannot easily tell whether he impresses her. He cannot pull a predictable string and get reassurance. And if he has built his identity around being admired, desired, or deferred to, her calm self-possession becomes an uncomfortable mirror. It shows him how much of his confidence depends on being reflected back by other people. This is why some men will suddenly call a woman intimidating. Sometimes they mean she is hostile, but often they mean something much more revealing. She is not volunteering to make me feel powerful. There is a difference. A woman can be kind, attentive, feminine, emotionally open, and still be intimidating to a man who needs to feel superior. Intimidation is not always caused by aggression. Sometimes it is caused by the absence of submission. And men who cannot tolerate that absence tend to reveal themselves in predictable ways. They may become dismissive. They may make subtle jokes about her standards, her intelligence, her career, or the way she speaks. They may frame her self-respect as coldness. They may accuse her of thinking she is better than everyone. It is a clever little maneuver. If he cannot make her seek his approval directly, he tries to make her feel guilty for not seeking it. He wants her to come down from a pedestal she never placed herself on. The goal is not always to hurt her. Often, the goal is to restore a hierarchy that feels familiar to him. A woman who does not ask for permission to exist outside a man's judgment can feel strangely dangerous to someone who depends on that judgment being central. She exposes the fact that his approval may not be currency everywhere, and men who have spent years believing their attention is a prize do not always react gracefully when they meet a woman who has her own wealth. What happens next is where it becomes dangerous. Because when admiration does not work, some men move toward testing. They will create small moments designed to see whether she can be unsettled. A delayed response, a careless remark, a comparison to another woman, a sudden withdrawal after showing interest. They are looking for evidence that beneath her calm exterior, she is still waiting to be chosen. If she becomes frantic, they relax. The old order has returned. If she remains composed, they become more invested or more hostile. This is not romance. It is the psychology of control, wearing a nice shirt. In 1966, psychologist Jack Brame introduced what became known as psychological reactance, the tendency for people to become motivated to reclaim something when they feel their freedom or access to it is being restricted. When a man senses that a woman's admiration is not automatically available to him, he may feel a powerful urge to win it. But here is the detail people miss. The urge to win access is not the same as the capacity to value what is gained. A man may pursue a woman because her approval is difficult to obtain. That does not automatically mean he has the emotional discipline to treat her well once he receives it. Some men are not drawn to intimacy. They are drawn to conquest. They do not want to build a relationship with a woman who has boundaries. They want the private satisfaction of proving they can make her lower them. This is why you must watch what happens after he feels he has earned proximity. Does he become more respectful? Or does he become more casual? Does he become curious about who she is? Or does he begin assuming access to her time, body, attention, and emotional labor? The man's behavior after he feels secure tells you more than his behavior while he is trying to impress you. Anyone can appear attentive when the prize still feels out of reach. Character begins speaking once the chase no longer requires performance. Now this is where most people misunderstand the psychology. They believe that if a man becomes more interested when a woman stops seeking his approval, he has recognized her value. Perhaps. But recognition and respect are not the same thing. A man can recognize that you are rare and still want to possess you rather than understand you. He can see your self-control and decide that it is a challenge. He can admire your standards while privately resenting that they apply to him. This is the central danger for women who have finally learned not to perform for male approval. Their independence attracts men who are capable of appreciating it. But it also attracts men who interpret every boundary as a personal insult and every calm response as an invitation to escalate. The difference is visible in one place: how he behaves when he cannot move you. A man with genuine self-command will not need to destabilize a woman to feel connected to her. If she disagrees with him, he does not experience it as disrespect. If she is busy, he does not treat her availability as a loyalty test. If she receives his compliment without melting into gratitude, he does not become offended that his words did not produce the usual effect. He understands something that insecure men cannot tolerate. A woman's approval means more when she is fully capable of withholding it. The insecure man wants the reward without the risk. He wants your admiration to be permanent, regardless of how little he invests. He wants to feel important without doing anything important. He wants you emotionally available, but not emotionally discerning. A convenient woman, in other words, but one with enough self-respect to make him look good in public. A very ambitious arrangement, and when you do not provide it, he may begin to call you difficult. Difficult is one of the most useful words in the vocabulary of a person who has encountered a boundary. It allows him to avoid saying what he really means. You are not responding in the way that benefits me. He might tell you that you are overthinking. This often means you have noticed a pattern he hoped would remain invisible. He might say you are guarded. This can mean you have declined to reveal your vulnerabilities before he has demonstrated that he can handle them responsibly. He might accuse you of not being affectionate enough, usually after he has confused access with intimacy. The vocabulary changes. The motive does not. He is trying to make your self-possession feel like a defect. Because if he succeeds, you will begin correcting yourself. You will offer reassurance he did not earn. You will over-explain your choices. You will prove that you care. You will become emotionally available in order to escape the accusation that you are cold. And just like that, he has moved you back into the position he understands. Seeking approval is not always obvious. It does not always look like compliments and eagerness. Sometimes it looks like defending yourself too much. Sometimes it looks like explaining why you did not respond quickly. Sometimes it looks like giving a man access to your inner world, because you are afraid that withholding it will make him leave. But the person who leaves because you did not immediately surrender access was not looking for intimacy. He was looking for a shortcut. A woman who does not seek approval forces men to take the longer route. They must be consistent. They must reveal character over time. They must tolerate ambiguity. They must accept that attraction does not entitle them to influence. For a mature man, this is not humiliating. It is clarifying. For a man whose identity depends on being emotionally powerful over women, it is torture disguised as a conversation. Around this point, he will often attempt a more subtle maneuver. He will become unusually impressive. He may talk more about his accomplishments, his money, his network, the women who want him, the opportunities he has declined. He may display his status with the casualness of a man who has rehearsed being casual in front of a mirror. He wants you to understand that he is a prize. This is not necessarily a lie. He may genuinely have achievements, but pay attention to why they appear at this particular moment. When a man feels unable to command your approval through presence, he may try to purchase it through symbols. Status becomes emotional leverage. He hopes the evidence of his value will make you abandon your own evaluation process. But a woman who does not seek approval is not blind to status. She simply does not kneel before it. She can notice success without being seduced by it. She can enjoy charm without becoming dependent on it. She can hear grand promises without mistaking them for a future. This is what makes her difficult to manipulate, not because she has no emotions, but because her emotions are not available for immediate acquisition. If you are trying to understand these patterns more clearly in your own situation, one-on-one coaching, along with monthly and yearly coaching, is available through the link in the description. It is designed to help you identify the difference between genuine interest and ego-driven pursuit, between a man's momentary intensity and his long-term character, and between confidence and emotional detachment. After ordering, check your spam or promotions folder for the confirmation, and subscribe to the newsletter for discounts. What happens next is where the entire situation reveals itself. Eventually, the man will face a choice. He can meet a woman at her level of self-respect, or he can try to drag her into the old game of proving herself. The first requires effort. The second requires only tactics. The man who chooses effort becomes more transparent. He makes his intentions clear. He does not create confusion to measure your attachment. He does not punish you for having a life outside of him. He does not become colder the moment you stop feeding his ego. He may still be flawed. He may still have fears, habits, and blind spots. But he does not make his insecurity your full-time job. The other man will begin to oscillate. Warmth, then withdrawal. Interest, then indifference. Praise, then criticism. He wants to keep you engaged but uncertain. Complete certainty would give you the power to evaluate him properly. Uncertainty keeps you occupied. It makes you focus on what he means rather than what he does. That is the trap. When you spend your time decoding a man, you have less time judging him. And men who benefit from ambiguity understand this instinctively. They may not sit down with a notebook and design the strategy. Human beings can be remarkably manipulative without ever being self-aware. But the pattern remains the same. He gives enough to preserve hope and removes enough to preserve leverage. The woman who seeks approval is highly vulnerable to this cycle, because every withdrawal feels like a verdict on her worth. The woman who does not seek approval interprets it differently. She sees withdrawal as information. She does not need to know whether he is afraid, busy, confused, avoidant, wounded, overwhelmed, or going through a difficult season in his personal journey. She observes the effect. Does contact with him create clarity or confusion? Does his presence make her feel more grounded or more watchful? Does he return with consistency, or merely enough attention to restart the cycle? His motives may be complex. His pattern is not. This is the power that women often underestimate. You do not need a confession from a man to understand his intentions. You need time, observation, and the willingness to believe behavior, even when his words are unusually beautiful. Words are often a man's attempt to influence your interpretation of his actions. Actions are what remains after the influence fails. And this is why a woman who does not seek approval can become unforgettable. Not because she is cruel, not because she is unavailable, not because she performs some artificial mystery. She is unforgettable because she represents a form of emotional freedom many people encounter too rarely. She cannot be bought with attention. She cannot be managed with silence. She cannot be reduced to an audience for his self-image. If he wants her respect, he must become respectable in the only way that matters, repeatedly, privately, and over time. That requirement eliminates a great many men, which is not a tragedy. It is an efficient sorting mechanism. Subscribe to the channel and like this video if you want more psychological breakdowns of male behavior, hidden motives, emotional leverage, and the private calculations people make when they believe nobody can see them. And tell me in the comments, when you stopped seeking a man's approval, did he become more respectful, more performative, or suddenly resentful? Order the feminine game through the link in the description, and remember to check your spam or promotions folder after purchasing. And visit the new channel, X-Pimp Explains Men Masterclass, where 50-minute videos are uploaded weekly. A woman who does not seek approval does not make every man feel attracted. She makes certain men feel exposed. And men will tell you a great deal about themselves by what they do when they cannot make you doubt your own value.